from India. It was Japan where I landed first from India after my PhD. Instantly, I found a lot of similarities between India and Japan, but that was mainly through Buddhism. So, everywhere in Japan, you see lots of Buddhist temples, beautiful temples. I landed up in Matsuyama, a city in the south, and there was a beautiful temple called Isteji. In a few days' time, my professor Ryo Tatsukawa called me and he says, "Do you know that you Tamils and Japanese are related?" I was surprised. I said, "Is that so? I didn't know about that." And then he showed me a book by Professor Ono, who has shown similarity between the Tamil language and Japanese. That was a surprise for me. In fact, Professor Ono was in Madurai Kamaraj University delivering a lecture and doing his research while I was in Madurai Kamaraj University. But I never realized that. And he has written a beautiful book where he compares the ancient Tamil and the Japanese and showed a lot of similarities. He assembled something like 4,000 words that are similar. And then I got interested in looking for Japanese cultural identities. Naturally, the identities are mostly what we call rural in Tamil Nadu, but that has been accepted in Japan as overall etiquette. For example, when you drink something, you drink with a little bit of a sound. Okay, when you drink a water, you say, or when you eat noodles, you make a sound. Okay, if you go to the villages, people do that, and that's called as bad manners because most Indians wants to be like British. But the Japanese probably got this habit from an ancient past, but they are not very fussy about it. And if you go to the villages, you see that there's a small god shrine, and then we call it as padayal, an offer. In the padayal, you also see arak, like most village gods here in India will have that. Arak is alcohol. So these village customs or the folk traditions are very similar. Only later I realized that Professor Ono's students, two eminent people from Sri Lanka, Professor Shanmugadas and his wife, Professor Dr. Manonmani Shanmugadas. When I met them in Mayuram in a conference, they told me that there's a lot of similarity between the Sangam literature and the ancient poems of Japan. And she said that without really understanding the cultural behavior of the Tamils in the Sangam period, you may not really understand the ancient poems of Japan, because the modern Japan is so very different. And so there are two things in Japan which is actually unique to them, and they don't know an answer. One is an ancient people of Japan called Yayoi. They don't know where they come from and what are their cultural elements. They don't know much about it. And then they also have these beautiful poems which they call 20,000 Leaves. And those poems also, they can't really interpret because it's so alien to them. It's not like the Zen koans. The koans are actually developed and produced by Japanese. So that has a Japanese stamp. Whereas these ancient poems and these ancient people are not really connected to the modern Japanese. So with Japan, one always see that The cultural similarities are very strong. Otherwise, the Japanese are more Western, and their behavior, their etiquettes are extremely Western. Um, but they are still holding on to the Zen Buddhism. In fact, like Japan is the gateway for India for the Americans who come there. That's what I found. But I never realized that Japan and Korea are linked through ancient Tamilagams. So that's the thing I discovered when I started working in Korea, especially on the Indian Korean relationship. We'll see that in the next episode.